And I got called salty and maldy today. Whatever maldy means, I'm not
Maldy.
not 100% sure. Welcome to Disparate Worlds, where an irresistible force meets an immovable object. I'm Mox, and this is Sechari, and we are comparing and contrasting the worlds of Pantheon, Rise of the Fallen, and Ashes of Creation.
Indeed, we are. Hello to you, friends. Welcome to another episode of Disparate Worlds, where Mox is only just slightly less angry this time.
I got all my frustrations out last night.
Yes, go check it out if you haven't. We managed to do our first live stream video review from another content creator. We picked Narc. What a great place to start.
A great place. It can only go uphill from there. And I got called salty and maldy today. Whatever maldy means, I'm not 100% sure. I'm sure it's referring to my follically challenged state, but yeah.
Baldy Mox, I just love it.
Exactly.
These things are just, they're music to my ears. We invite you to join our journey, like not just show up for the live streams if and when we do those. Again, we'll always announce on social media, right? So the way to get the information and the go lives, the alerts when we do that, of course, is to hit the notification bell when you subscribe. But throw a like on our video if you find we offer you any value whatsoever in this process. We are enjoying these conversations, and we enjoy these conversations with you. So definitely comments, anything that you have to share, review, your thoughts. We'd love to hear from them. Mox responds copiously.
I do. I keep an eye on the content, the comments. Yeah. Since you don't,
I read them and here and there respond and throw a like myself. But
yeah,
typically you are the man as far as that's concerned. So
I try.
You do try. Yes. This episode we are going to cover Steven Sharif's recent Ask Me Anything, also known as an AMA, that they did in Reddit. Any comment on Reddit, Mox?
Oh, I love Reddit. It's my favorite cesspool.
Yes, yeah. Dip your tonar in that and see how it comes back.
Yeah, it's ugly. But I mean, there are good Reddit communities within it. Like there are bubbles of goodness within the cesspool, but they're I'm sure they're few and far between.
Bog of eternal stench.
Yeah, exactly.
So Steven Sharif did an AMA. They picked the most upvoted questions, so everybody would ask, and the ones that turned out to be the most popular were the ones that he addressed. So there are 20 or so of those that he responded to. We will have the link to his video doing that in the description, so by all means go there and follow or catch the full thing.
Right.
For this episode, really we're going to comment on one or two or three of them that we considered highlights and were things we enjoyed seeing.
Or 10.
Or 10 maybe, yeah. Indeed. Things that we had thoughts on, right? So this is going to be some commentary, but I think I would recommend everybody go check that out first.
Yeah, there's lots and lots. Like, this is like probably one of the most substantial info dumps that I've seen come out of the devs in a while.
Yeah, very good. There's a lot of stuff, and we've looked over it. We've fine-tooth combed it, so
we did.
We'll get into that ahead. All right, Mox, server merges. Shall we begin there? That was the first question he dealt with and the most popular of his list.
Absolutely. And I would also want to add in here, do they have a plan for server splits? And on launch day, being ready to bring on like 400% more of the servers than they actually initially plan? Like, Are they ready for that? Like, having seen what happened with New World.
Yes, absolutely. Far more people. I've never seen a launch of an MMO where the development studio doesn't underestimate what that first interest is. And it seems to me like they never truly have an idea based on their pre-sales, right? And the signups for accounts and such. It's just never accurate. 40% more.
I think Ashes will go platinum. Like, it'll probably be platinum prior to launch, like, and ready, right. Like, you know, they're just. I hope they're ready. That's all I can say. I hope they're ready, like, for that.
Yes. More servers.
Yep. But the upside though is that Steven already talked about, like, some of the potential issues when you deal with server mergers, which I really am happy that they're, like, have a game plan for dealing with that.
Absolutely. The one thing that concerned me the most, was something I absolutely came to hate in New World, was when you conquered a territory, right? You managed to you own some piece of this land, and then they merge you into another server. Whoever's in that server gets to keep their land, and you are just out on your ear. I felt homeless when I was dumped into the streets of a new server. Yeah. And then you have to reintegrate and figure it out and try to... But it's a different server culture, so typically I hate server merges for that reason.
Right. But actually, I mean, New World was very much a political game offline, though, for you. Like, you were involved heavily in, like, offline
I spent more time
negotiations and collaborations and whatnot.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. And it's true. And, you know, this is going to be much less of a thing. I think I can see if somebody is the mayor of a node and their server gets merged into another, they will no longer be the mayor of that node.
I hope they have a plan. They didn't. Steven mentioned housing, like that. You know, there's two possibilities. So either gonna, you know, basically, and I think we're talking at that point about freeholds. You know,
everything else is instanced.
I mean, I don't know. It might even be the instant housing now that I'm thinking about it, because the instant housing on one might be drastically different than the instant housing on the other.
It's true.
So
well, and there are in-node houses, right? Like you can get a mansion or a little.
So
you know,
he did speak generally about land ownership, and one of the options is the server that's stronger and that's absorbing the weaker server will just retain ownership. That's one possibility, and that's very much akin to the New World method. Option two is when we merge, it's a free-for-all. You go acquire what you can acquire.
Whoever gets here first, we'll pick it up. Yeah,
so
I like that much better than somebody. I mean, I can see if the server being merged in is a very minuscule population, right? That makes sense, because you don't want to disrupt a huge population in order to integrate a small group. That's just terrible.
Right.
But if they are, I say, within a certain threshold of each other, just reset. It's not going to be nice.
And do you refund the purchase price of the server at that point? Like, that's a question. Like, what happens to that currency?
Yeah.
I don't
know. They will figure it out. We will comment about that. So. Okay, so that's really all, you know, what occurred to us as far as server merges are concerned. There's some questions about Alpha 2, you know, when is that coming out? Namely, what do you have to do first in order to get there? Some questions on the abilities for each archetype, which we will be... nothing that I thought was noteworthy, right? Of course, everyone's going to have abilities, 35, 40 or so.
And they're going to vary. You know, you're not going to have a one-to-one, like, you know, I have 30 abilities on X class and 30 abilities on Y class. It's there'll be slight variations. You're not going to have one that has 10 and one that has 30. He said there'll be a range of, like you said, about 5, so...
And everybody has to pick from a given set as to which ones they are carrying, right? So if you pick more passives, you'll have less active skills than somebody else, right?
Right, and which ones you spec into, like you you improve, I guess, basically.
Right, and it sounds good to me. I don't have an issue or a thought really in that regard. So, what about secondary archetypes? So it seems that we have things to say about this.
Yeah, I do. But this has been my issue for 2 years with this. When they keep saying they have 8 classes, and with Steven saying that the secondary class that you can pick, it's level 25. Is that right?
Yes.
So when you hit level 25, you can pick your secondary archetype. And he said that can dramatically change the role and abilities. So to me, you're potentially taking a tank and turning him into a DPS. Taking a healer, potentially turning him into a DPS.
Yeah, give him more,
Right, maybe taking a DPS class, making him more tanky. Taking a utility class and giving him, making him a better healer. So by doing this, aren't we really saying that we have 64 classes?
Yes. So whatever the label is you want to use for what those are, right? I mean, you've got your base quote-unquote types. and then you come up with a combination, and it is kind of distinct from every combination around it, every other one. Yeah, I'd say in that term, I'm trying not to get semantic right here, right? Like whatever you want to call that.
Okay,
yeah, I think it's
enough.
going to be separate and distinct to everything else, right?
Yeah,
that seems fair to me.
I think, and you had brought up in our notes that Guild Wars 1, had secondary professions, but I think the difference being that the secondary professions in Guild Wars 1 really just complemented the main class. It made a tank, you still were a tank, but you just were a different kind of tank.
No, so in Guild Wars 1, in Guild Wars 1, you actually got skills from your primary class and skills from your secondary class. And the challenge there was to come up with some kind of a synergy, the way that those skills could complement each other. Right. That was half the fun, coming up with a build, right? In this one, I was carefully reading before we started this episode. It's interesting that the secondary type, whatever the secondary quote-unquote class is, will not give you more skills. But it will change the nature of your current skills. An example that they have on the wiki is a fighter, for instance, may have a charge type thing where they run a short distance and knock down somebody with a shield or whatever, right? If they maybe pick up a mage as a secondary, they may be able to teleport that distance rather than cover it physically and build momentum.
See, to me that sounds more like the Guild Wars 2 method, but Steven says it dramatically changes it. Like I don't know. I guess when Alpha 2 happens, I guess we'll see.
Yeah, it'll change the play style. I think, if you see somebody with a shield knock down somebody else with a shield, I think we're dealing with a fighter, right?
Yeah.
But then how fast they get over there, or, if it's faster than normal running or whatever, I think those who know what they're talking about will be able to see differences in style and know what they're doing. Right.
And I'm looking forward to the next alpha to see this stuff in action. So,
sure.
I don't think my issue with 64 classes is how do you balance all that? If they can manage to balance all 64 classes, using their rock, paper, scissors, group balancing and all that stuff, then I'll be like, all right, great. There's 64 things I can choose from. Let me find one I like.
Yes, that is your challenge because you're an alcoholic.
To kind of explore that, I think, but. From a theoretical standpoint, to me, it sounds like a lot of balancing and
it does, yeah,
and potential for that whole flavor of the month for a build, like.
Yes.
You're going to end up with like a very heavy concentration on like a handful of the 64. So then what's the point?
Yeah. The number crunch is always too that. I think it's going to happen anyway, right? I mean, that's why balancing has always been an issue in MMOs. This is not anything new.
Absolutely.
I don't have different expectations for Ashes as I do.
And speaking of the next alpha, Steven mentioned that they're going to be having one of the questions was about spot tests, and he said that yes, they will have some focused spot tests coming up. Specifically, he mentioned one of them is going to have to do with crafting and such to see what people think about kind of their implementation of crafting, because the general public has not gotten very much hands on that system yet, right?
Yeah, it was very rudimentary gathering and not really much on the refinement. It was just really gathering stuff in Alpha 1. And maybe, I don't even remember refining. I remember a quest that you had to refine something in order to make a weapon.
Oh, okay.
And it was very basic. It was like making an iron sword, right? That was all it was. And that was really all there was to it. There was not much more. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing more detail. Yeah.
So several spot tests over the next several months, Steven said. So several to me says we're looking past the end of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's true. For Alpha 2?
So my question here is, and I know everybody's got the question of when is Alpha 2 happening, based on that, and based on the fact that they're planning on having several of these sessions, are we looking at really approaching the 2-year mark in between alphas? Potentially?
I don't know. I mean, I think the earliest I'm guessing it may happen is probably spring, right? Like later spring,
right?
April, May, thereabouts in 2023.
And you were mid-July to mid-August, right? Of 21 is when you last tested. So it'd be interesting to see what happens and how long that is in between sessions. Because I think everybody thinks, there's going to be an Alpha 2 this year, and I really think that they should temper their expectations.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to be excited. Be excited all you want.
Yeah.
Enjoy the hype, right?
And
yeah,
if you have
fully
access, take advantage of that spot testing over the next couple months, which will be under NDA, by the way.
Yes, indeed. Okay, so healing skills and action combat, my dear Mox.
This is the one thing that just really makes me worry, because having tasted action healing in New World,
right? Now, let me say here, you're not the only one with that concern. There's a reason this is one of the top 20 most upvoted questions.
Right.
Because other people have been there, done that, and have the same kind of question, right? So, okay, go ahead.
And then Steven doubled down on it. Like, he was like, oh, right. Yeah, we're going to have formational healing and Linus, direct line healing and tank abilities that reduce damage from behind if he has two people behind him. And, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, it's bad enough to try to heal with tab targeting under normal circumstances, and you're wanting us to, get into a cross and heal?
Yeah. I'll tell you what, I think that the onus is on the healer more than it's going to be on the group. I think when you have so I'll say the exception is going to be the groups of me and my friends. We play with each other a lot. Right. We're in voice chat, and we're dealing with a dungeon. I think I'm going to go, okay, everybody get in the cross formation or whatever formation they need to be in order for this heal to drop, to maximize the use of that heal. That's going to be part of the game, I think. When you're out there in a castle siege, right, I think that action, you will have to be close in order to shoot a single heal at somebody. I think it's and I actually felt this when I was doing healing in castle sieges and some of the testing. AoE is your friend. It's only, you get into the thick of it and you drop a big heal and you back out. And you use the spot heals to heal yourself, essentially, is really the way it works. That's how you have to action heal, so...
Yeah, I agree. It's bad enough when you're doing content and you have a boss and you're you got people standing in stupid. Now you're stand in smart.
Right. Yeah, double the challenge for everyone.
Right.
Else.
So that being said, I'm not a fan. We'll see. Obviously you're gonna have the option to tab target, so that should not rely on any of this stuff. So we'll see how that all plays out.
Indeed. Okay, so primary leveling system. There was a question about, how do you foresee, everybody knows this is a sand park MMO. The idea is part of it's theme park and there's quest lines, and part of it is go find something to do to level, go grind, right? What's your primary vision was the question, and it was great for me to see that he wasn't leaning into the theme park elements as the main way. I mean, he said it was traditional in that questing and grinding, kind of between those two. And grinding is not just go find as I imagine you could, right? But go kill as many creatures as you can in the wild, right? And go do repeatable dungeons, for instance, open world dungeons and stuff. I think that's kind of his idea of grinding, is repeatable stuff. But I love that he said that that's not going to get you the full way. It's going to be a primary huge amount of it, right? But you have to go out into the wilderness and go explore and go find things and go do some gathering and do some crafting and such in order to engage in the node system and to drive the node actually, leveling up. So the overlap of those systems was good. I like that they haven't fully... You can solo quest your way from start to max level.
Right. And I'm okay with this to a degree. I definitely like the idea of you're in a tier 2 node, and in order to expand it, we need to kill X number. We as a node, the citizens of the node, need to kill X number of creatures in the wilderness in order to expand our borders. That kind of thing. It makes it seem more like the Wild West, go forward, go west, young man type thing. And you go out there and you set up your little house, and you clear the land and you farm on it and all that. So I do like that. I don't like the fact that if questing is my thing and I want to quest from level 1 to up to the top. It made it seem to me like he's preventing that from happening. Okay. And I don't like that necessarily. If I'm somebody who wants to go out there and do every quest I can find, I shouldn't have to go from the node that I'm home at to, across the continent in order to find a node where I can go do some quests.
So you do all the quests that are available in a specific node up until now there's nothing left because it's stuck at tier 3, for instance.
Right.
So now you've got to go find another tier 3 or lower node in order to be able to do quests there, because tier 4 content is higher than your level, right? And the things that it's going to send you out to kill. So there's going to be some traversal. I imagine you probably could, if you want to do quests and only quests in order to get there, but you're just going to have to find those quests, you know, in the nodes that you can.
Especially since I'm not a PvPer, like I'm not going to be out there doing like protecting caravans or whatever, or attacking caravans.
But we'll be doing dungeons
on the norm.
together. Yeah, we'll hit dungeons, in groups and stuff. I think it'll be fun. Okay, so there was a question as well about challenges before releasing Alpha 2. Nothing new there that we don't already kind of expect, right? They're working on infrastructure, and they're working on he admitted, interestingly, the sheer scope of the content, right? We've had a conversation related to this. Yeah. But there's a lot of stuff that, oh my goodness, it's, there's a lot. Are you sure you can take this on?
Right.
There's a lot to take on, and they know it, right? So it was good to actually hear them bring that up.
Indeed.
All right, a really cool question about spyglasses and ship-to-ship stuff. Can you see
and
further,
like rendering at sea?
Right. Yeah, and you didn't quite say yes, so you've got a thing, right? Like there are cool. Like imagine if you're looking at from the ship perspective, maybe you've got more. You can zoom out further or something, right? So it does give you some aspect to there. But the coolest thing about the ships that I learned from this AMA was that it's just the way that ships work, right? Like you purchase a model of a ship or build a model of a ship and certain models are different to others, and they have points on that chassis, say, where you can equip a spyglass, or you can unequip it and put an upgraded spyglass that you get crafted or find or loot somewhere, right? So that kind of a thing. And this it's cool, the idea that you can modify the way your ship behaves or the features or the attributes associated with that ship based on those components. That was very cool. Like an upgraded sail, I think, right?
Or rudder, or ballista, or cannons, or whatever. Yeah, it sounds like ships will be as unique as the players themselves.
Yeah, well, that's cool. And I imagine somebody's going to crunch numbers too. Here's the way you should do your ship.
Right, and this is you should have 1 big ship and 2 medium ships and 4 small ships, and like your little
carrier
armada.
Group. Right, absolutely. And you get to call yourself Commodore.
Actually, it's funny. One of my favorite war movies is the original Midway, so it reminds me of that.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. So, okay, so here's another cool thing is that we got a full release of the Artisan classes.
Yeah, we talked about this way back, like in, I don't know, episode... It was
16, I think it was, right?
Yeah, I was going to say it's under 20, so it was fairly early on in this where we talked about the crafting in Ashes, and the list changed since then. Like, they moved things around, they removed stuff,
Yeah, so we talk about gathering. I think gathering for the most part was about the same stuff you'd expect, like mining, lumberjacking, right, herbalism, fishing and hunting. We noticed since our previous one, we had taming and farming were listed and were not there. They are not listed among the gathering professions. Farming is not a gathering profession. That's interesting to me.
Yeah, it's been moved to processing.
It's been moved to a processing profession. Yeah, right. And taming is nowhere on the list. Taming is now not there. So
I imagine taming is probably just rolled somewhere into being part of animal husbandry.
It got rolled into Pantheon.
It did.
That's where it is. We found it.
It moved over there. I didn't realize that.
Mystery solved. All right. So processing, formerly we had blacksmithing, and that has now been renamed metalworking.
Right.
Okay, sure. Why not? Not a problem there. Stonemasonry, weaving, tanning, lumber milling. Right, somebody's going to cut that wood. Farming is there. Of course, we mentioned that. Animal husbandry, alchemy, and cooking.
Right. Alchemy was in there before, but cooking was a crafting profession, and it's been moved up to processing, which, does make sense. Cooking is, you do process it, but, is it, to me, if cooking is the final step, it should be under crafting, but that's splitting hairs.
I mean, honestly, it's all right.
Yeah.
So back when we did episode 16, the only two that we could find to cover were smelting and animal husbandry.
Right.
Right. I imagine smelting now doesn't exist, and that's become metalworking. There's probably some kind of refining process where you take ores and you turn them into just ingots and
bars, right? and things like that. Yeah.
Right. Which then become the inputs to weaponsmithing and armor smithing and some other things that are now in the crafting list. Right. So
which does disappoint unless they put in like things like if they didn't have them, but like let's say they have horseshoes. Like to me, horseshoes should be falling under either farrier or blacksmithing. It really definitely doesn't belong in armor smithing or weaponsmithing. Right. So unless it's
may be that they can
or it doesn't
some,
exist,
it may be that they can produce some consumable, items. Not everything has to come from it. The crafting is the marketing. So
right.
We'll see. So weaponsmithing, armor smithing, as we've mentioned, carpentry, that makes sense.
Yep.
Arcane engineering, what do you think of that one?
That probably is one of two things. It's either going to be like making like siege weapons potentially. Mm-hmm. It could be magical weapons of some sort.
Yeah, I would expect it to be magical. Right, I would expect whoever's coming up with. And there was another question about spell books and orbs and
right. You mentioned staves being ranged weapons.
Yeah. So maybe arcane engineering is the weaponsmith of the spellcasters, right?
Yeah.
Is it formerly alchemy? I don't know. Alchemy went away. That was listed previously and is not there anymore. So I wonder perhaps if that's really what the idea.
It's just, it's entirely possible that the wiki was just underinformed also. So, but we can we've been assured by Steven that this is the list.
Yes, at least the list right now.
Yeah, so
because scope creep.
And I assume that we're talking like again that when they have like the three. I think we mentioned in our original episode that you can spec into one to the top tier, but not into all three. So
yeah, there's some
limitations.
So. Right. Yeah. So, just to speed through the rest of this, leatherworking, tailoring, okay, fine, so, some clothing. Jewel cutting, formerly jewel crafting, so fair enough. And scribing, which I imagine maybe there's I don't know.
Obviously, it's something magical as well, I would think.
I would guess, but who knows? Could be all kinds of things. So, that's the list. If the wiki gets updated and we can find something that's worth pointing you to, go check that out. But I would highly recommend just going to see that in the video.
Oh yeah, and shipbuilding, which we know is a thing, and siege weapon building, which we know is a thing, are no longer listed as their own professions.
So who makes that stuff? Right?
Exactly. Yeah. So that'll be interesting to see.
Yeah. Okay, a question about how many monthly subs are required for the game to survive. Interesting. Yeah. He couldn't answer that, and I don't expect him to ever.
Just because he didn't want to tell us how big his bank account was.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so he was saying, he's expecting 1 million plus concurrent users.
Yeah.
Right. Based on data that they
plan on more, Steven. Plan on more.
40%, I guarantee it. But I guarantee that he's probably going to reimburse himself what he has invested so far pretty quickly. I think it's going to be.
I would think, yeah.
I did like that he mentioned that the draws to Ashes of Creation. Like, it was good to see him justify what he believes sets Ashes of Creation apart, or makes it a game that people would want to play. Right. It's using a next generation engine, right? Unreal 5, a next gen title, emerging popular systems that other MMOs use. They have a dedication as a company to never do pay to win, never do pay to convenience, which I really like. And that they're holding so true to that is the breath of fresh air that so many people are looking for.
And I agree with all that stuff. In fact, as much as it makes it seem like it, I want Ashes to succeed. I'm going to play it. I think we're going to have fun playing it. Yeah. I just think there are aspects of it that just don't sing to me. That's the big part of it. So I hope it succeeds. I hope it does really, really well. And that's all I can say about that.
Indeed. All right, some question about Summoner Cleric, some of the classes that they haven't yet quite been able to see. he was just talking about the process, right? You got to animate, do visual effects, sound effects, all that stuff in order to get those out there. Some of them show up in A2. I think they're planning to do them in.
Yeah, he committed to some of them being in A2, Alpha. Not all of them.
Yeah, so we'll see. You know, more to come as they release on those. We'll find out. And then the next question is intended leveling progression and experience, you know, and all of the stuff that goes into really fast travel.
I don't think he answered like what the question meant, though.
Yeah.
Like, I think somebody, like, when they talk about leveling progression, I think they wanted to know how long will it take us to get from 1 to end game. Like, that to me is what that question is saying. Right. And he took it to be, hey, this is how you can travel around the areas, which was great information, but I don't think it was the question.
Yeah. Hell, fair enough. Yeah. But we got some good stuff about you know, we've been aware right now about tier 6 scientific nodes allow you to teleport to another tier 6, you know, or to its vassals or whatever else, right? So we've long since known about that, but it was good to see him actually clarify some of the other quote-unquote fast travel between nodes. Right. Apparently you get to tier 3 and you can, imagine it's probably the mayor, can set up a building in the node that allows you to pay a fee and fast travel over land, maybe like a
rented mount.
Yeah. Now, it's fast travel. How does that look? You know, are you invincible? Nobody knows. We'll find that out as we go. Right. But if you level it up, and if another node levels it up, you may be able to even get to where you can fly from node to node. Right. Which was interesting to see. Okay. Yeah. Anything further in that? Are we good? No,
I don't. I think, and he says, like, as the world progresses, that travel will become easier, which kind of does make sense. Like, you're advancing in technology and such. So I'm okay with that.
Right. Okay. Super quick, a question somebody asked about. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say one thing. You and I did have a discussion before the episode that we do think that in order to unlock that you should have to travel traditionally from node A to node B at least once.
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
And unlock that so that it's like...
See the country.
Because you don't want it to be a situation where somebody comes into the game late and they can just, you know, travel, like hop around the entire continent.
Right. So. Yeah, depending on how things have been leveled, for sure.
Right.
Yeah. There's a question about nameplate visibility. Somebody was like, "I'd like to be able to," and you can tell a New World player when they show up, right? I want to hide my nameplate when I PvP. So can I hide behind a rock? Can I crouch? Can I go prone? Yeah. There is none of that. No prone, and they were thinking about crouched.
Right. That's still under discussion.
Right. Really, he was like, quit thinking that way. Think about the skill set that you have available to you based on your archetype, right? So you may have camouflage or disguise or invisibility. I mean, like, if you care about that kind of thing, do some rogue, do some ranger, right? They will have those abilities, and you will be able to
spec into them.
Leverage those. That's really the direction there. Let's see. Just more on rock, paper, scissors. That's fine. Moving right along. Nodes going up and nodes going down. There were some questions in that regard.
Yeah.
So do you want to
destruction
talk about
of a node really sounds interesting. Depending on the tier of the node is how long its ruins will remain afterwards. So tier 4 node gets destroyed in a siege. Its ruins will be there for 4 days. And this is a new thing, though, like that they had. And Steven's exact quote was, when a node gets destroyed, there's actually a period of time in which the node exists in a ruined state. He went on to say this is something new that we changed a while ago, but don't think we've ever discussed. So this is an example of, and this came up in our stream last night, of feature creep. This is something that they tested and they figured out this needs to change. We need to do something new. So not every single aspect of this game, contrary to some people's beliefs, was locked in at the time of the Kickstarter. Things change. Yes. Companies, to be successful, have to be flexible.
Yes. And it's a good thing. It's not a bad thing, right? And it maybe results in delays. Yeah. That's okay too, right?
But, but it's obviously something they felt was important to do. If you trust Steven, then you trust his decision to add this in.
Yes. And it's a cool feature.
Yeah.
Right? The fact that if a tier 4 node goes down, you have 4 days where you can go, and based on what they were doing in the node, right? If they had a certain stuff stored in the warehouse, right? Or certain trophies or certain accomplishments that they'd made in the node. There will be things that node leaves over in its ruins that you can go fight over, and it's an open PvP area for a while that you opt in. You don't have to go do it if you don't want to. But if you want to have, those rewards, now you can go in there and engage in some of that open world competition.
Right. And Steven said one of the big parts of doing this, of having this in the ruined state, was it allows the surrounding nodes a chance to advance before somebody swoops in and grabs this node and starts building it again. Mm-hmm. So, again, flexibility within the world, like changes. That's neat.
It's well thought out. I like their design on that, right? And then another thing that was cool is now we've spoken about nodes going down, being destroyed. Nodes coming up, the fanfare associated with a node going from tier 3 to tier 4, right? There's a little event that starts wherever the spawn point is. There's a caravan of goods or whatever that goes along. There's some fanfare. People know when they see it, hey, a node is leveling up.
Right, he said supplies will appear next to buildings. People will start hammering on the outside of them. All sounds really cool. I just hope there's some warning to the people that are within the city, because apparently when the time comes for it to level up, they get teleported out. And I would hate to be in the middle of an important crafting combine and have that teleportation lose me materials or just disrupt that.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so maybe say, hey, in 15 minutes, this, or there's enough of a fanfare that, things, you start to hear music or something.
Trumpets and whatnot, yeah.
Yeah, who knows? So there should be enough of that going on. But yeah, it's cool that they'll actually make it an event on the server, the leveling of a node.
Yeah.
So.
And finally, there's apparently going to be a castle siege that involves the naval combat, which just sounds really neat. Some of the cities that have ports will have objectives for those sieges, but there actually is a castle where you have to beat down the defenses before you can invade via naval siege, naval blockade. That's really cool.
Yes. Yeah, so it sounds so Black Sails to me, right? If you've seen that show, there's it's part of that where they have to assault the fort.
Yeah,
very cool. I love that they are seeing overlap and opportunities to make things different. A castle siege isn't always a castle siege. It's very much based on its terrain, its proximity to water, etc. That allows the nature of that castle siege to be different. Same thing with some of the node sieges, right? We'll see some of that there as well. He was mentioning in some of the nodes they may have a harbor within their territory, for instance, and there will be objectives in that harbor in order to make that a successful node siege. So very cool to see that.
Very cool. All right, well, that was a long one, but I enjoyed it. So don't forget to check out our socials at facebook.com/disparateworlds, our Twitter at disparateworlds, and our website disparateworlds.org. Also, check us out on Patreon at patreon.com/disparateworlds. In addition, on our website and in the description below is a link to our Discord. Please join us there.
Indeed, and that will be it for us this episode. You all, thank you for joining us. Very much appreciate it. Again, just a reminder, drop the comment, the like, the subscribe thing, all of that is always important, the notification bell as well. That way you do not miss upcoming episodes and the huge number of things that we have planned as far as coming content. Take care of yourselves. Remember always to be immovable in your principles and irresistible in your passion.